Let's begin with item number 1. With manner of answering as a criterion, which of the following does not belong to this test group? A. Completion test. B. True or false. Letter C. Matching type. Or letter D. Multiple choice. So if you know the answer, please type in on the chat box. So in this question, I would like to put emphasis on the given criterion. So the teacher would like to not just get the scores of the students right after the test, but also would like to find out the way students will respond in each of the question in the said test. So which do you think does not belong to the group? Do you have any guess for item number 1? Okay. Sir Marlon answered letter A, completion test. How about the others? Okay, I'm also seeing letter A. All right, let's check if that's the correct answer for number 1. It is not. Well, nice try, by the way. But for this question, the correct answer here is a true or false type of test. Why? Because if you're going to find out the way students will respond to the questions in the tests, for a true or false, it is just limiting or restricting the students. Why? Because the options will be situated or focused on binary response, meaning to say we only have true and false as the given or provided option. So for this one, if you're going to consider completion test, matching type, and multiple choice, although we are already providing them the plausible answers or alternative solutions to the question, still the students will need to provide and exhibit deeper understanding in answering the question. Just like, for example, in a multiple choice test, we are giving them that's the typical four options. So the student will still need to understand deeper the question in order to get the most fitting answer. So for a multiple choice test, the student can make use of the process of elimination. So for number 1, again, if you would like to know the manner of answering of the students, you have to make use of completion test, matching type, and multiple choice. I hope that's clear with you guys. Next, let's proceed with number 2. What is an alternative assessment tool that consists of a collection of work artifacts or in-progress accomplishment by a targeted client? A. Evaluation instrument. B. Rubric. Letter C. Achievement test. Or letter D. Portfolio. Again, take note, it's an alternative assessment tool. So we have several types of assessment tool. We have traditional and then alternative, or in some other references, we also have authentic assessments. So which do you think is being asked here? Collection of work, or in short, compilation of academic. All right, so Sir Marlon answered letter D. How about the others? We have B. All right, so let's try. All right, majority wins. Let's go ahead and select letter D. Portfolio. Very good, very good. So for portfolio assessment, we know that portfolio is a compilation. In the academe, that's the compilation of all student works. So for portfolio assessment, if you're going to make use of the collection of work artifacts, just like the masterpieces or the best outputs of the students, we are pertaining to display or showcased portfolio. Meanwhile, if we're talking about in progress accomplishment, we are talking about progressed portfolio. So that's for question number 2. And please take note, alternative assessment tool goes away from the traditional assessment which is making use of pen and paper. So alternative assessment and authentic assessment can be differentiated by this. Remember, alternative assessment means that you are testing the ability of the student to apply the knowledge and skills rather than rote memorization. For authentic assessment, on the other hand, we are testing the ability of the student to apply these skills and knowledge in real world context. So I hope that's clear with you. For evaluation instrument, just remember these are the tools that you are using to judge the worth of a student project or performance. So you can either make use of traditional or authentic or alternative assessment. For letter B, rubric. So rubric is very important, specifically if you're making use of authentic assessment, because rubric contains the criteria for judging a student's performance. And then letter C, achievement test. It measures how well a student mastered the competencies prescribed in the course or unit of instruction. So it's a type of test, typically in standardized, and it's in the format of multiple choice. I hope that's clear. Very good on the second try. Let's proceed with number 3. What does the test mean if the difficulty index is 1? A, very difficult. Letter B, missed by everyone. Letter C, very easy. Or letter D, a quality item. So I hope you are familiar with difficulty index. So it's part of item analysis. All right, Ma'am Jal, I answered letter A, very difficult. How about the others? Very easy. I need one more answer, letter A. All right. So let's select letter A for now. So um difficulty index of 1, is it A? It's letter C actually. It's very easy item. So when we talk about difficulty index future LPTs, we're pertaining to the ratio of the students who got the correct answer over the number of students who took the test. Like for example, if we have 10 students who answered item number 1, but only 5 of them got the correct answer, the difficulty index can be like this: 5 over 10, or in decimal form, we have 0.5, or in percentage form, that's 50%. So that's difficulty index. So if we're pertaining to the decimal form, it can range from 0 to 1. And if percentage, of course, that's 0 to 100%. So now, if the difficulty index is 1, we can say that 10 out of 10 students got the correct answer for item number 1. And so, what do we mean if the difficulty index is 1 or 100%? The item is a very easy one because all of them got the correct answer. And what will be the course of action of the teacher? The teacher will need to reject or discard these item. Why? Because it is not reliable when it comes to discriminating the upper and lower group. So we need to discard it. Now for letter A, very difficult. It's the other way around. So typically, in decimal form, the difficulty index will range from 0.14 to 0. Meaning to say, if an item is very difficult, few to no student got the correct answer. And what will be the action of the teacher? Still, the teacher will need to reject this item because it will not be fair. When we are when we are creating test questions, we have to give equal opportunities to all our students. So it will not be a reflection of you being a very bright teacher if you are giving difficult exams. And it will not be a reflection of you as a poor teacher if you are giving very easy questions. So we have to maintain balance and fairness when we are constructing test question. So for letter B, if it is missed by everyone, remember, missed by everyone, therefore the difficulty index is 0. And it's a very difficult item. And lastly, for letter D, a quality item, remember class, it has a moderate level of difficulty. So a quality item can typically um, have a difficulty index of 0.30 to 0.70. So that's the moderate level of difficulty. And it is a quality item, so the teacher will need to retain it in the test. So that's how you interpret difficulty index for item analysis. So in our if you wanted to know more about it, of course, you will have to again attend and be part of the review center. So we also have discrimination index and a lot more when it comes to item analysis. So again, good for good job for number three. Let's proceed with number four. In using essay questions, what of the following are these tests susceptible to, such as to make them less reliable to measure broad knowledge of the subject matter? A. Bluffing. Letter B. Time consuming. Letter C. Guessing. Or letter D. Cheating. So please type in your answer in the chat box. So we're talking about essay question, but the possible disadvantage of using it when measuring broad knowledge. Ano kaya yon? So Ma'am Jella answered letter C. Guessing. How about the others? All right. I've seen letter A, letter B, letter A. All right. Okay, majority, I guess it's letter A. So let's try to select letter A now. Very good. It is the correct answer. All right. So please remember when we are talking about essay type of tests, it's primarily used to gauge the higher order thinking skills of the students, right? Because when we create essays, we have to organize our thoughts, present our own understanding on the topic being asked, and we also have to create something out of the concept or um question posed by the teacher. But just like any other type of test, essay type of test can also be at a disadvantage, specifically if we are measuring broad type of knowledge. So students will tend to bluff when it comes to writing their own essay piece. Why? Because when we do bluffing kasi, we are actually making use of elegant but empty language to cover up for our lack of knowledge. So, what will be the possible results of this when we bluff? We tend to be redundant in our essay piece. And specifically, if we are asking the student to write a two-paragraph essay or a minimum of 500 words, excluding the articles, so syempre, students will tend to get bored, specifically if they actually do not know anything about the topic being asked by the teacher. So they will resort to bluffing. Next, for time consuming is, yes, true, but that's for the other aspect. Time consuming in the sense that aside from coming up with the essay question that will be asked in that test, the teacher will be asked to prepare the scoring guide or the rubric, and the teacher will either use holistic or analytical rubric to ensure that the teacher will be fair in grading the essay pieces. For guessing, it's very prevalent when it comes to a multiple choice type of test or in true or false type of test. And then cheating, of course, that's true to all type of tests, specifically if the students lack enough discipline, and of course if the proctor is not paying attention during the exam. But what I would like to suggest in here, if you wanted to measure broad type of knowledge, we have to make use of multiple choice type of test. I hope that's clear. So let's move on to the last item. I hope you're counting your scores as of the moment. So, number five, what is the normal curve in the grade distribution of students in a class? A, all have average grades. Letter B, most get average grades with few high and low scores. Letter C, must get high grades. Or letter D, must get low grades. And we have Ma'am Charmaine answering letter B. Okay. Are you sure with letter B? We have Sir Marlon with letter A. Mm-hmm. Okay. So still majority, we will try to pick letter B. So let's check if that's the correct answer. That is the correct answer. So when we talk about normal curve, guys, remember the normal distribution. So if you're going to plot the scores of your student right after the test, so you will have to plot it, and you will be generating a normal curve that is equal to the symmetrical bell-shaped curve. Symmetrical meaning to say the right portion of the graph will be equal and similar to the left portion of the graph. So that's for normal curve. And remember that it will have equal mean and median. So why do you think most of the students got average grades here? Okay, so for this one, on a normal curve, usually the scores of the students are in this particular pattern. We have the 65%, 95%, and 99.7%. So meaning to say, if you're going to follow that pattern, we have the relationship of mean and then the standard deviation. So if we follow the 65%, so that's where the scores will fall 1 SD of the mean. So SD meaning to say that's the spread of the score. So that's one standard deviation. So if we are going to look at it, accumulated at the 65%. If it is 2 SD, that's 95. And for 3 SD, that's 99.7%. That's the reason why we have taken into account few high and low scores. Okay. So still, even though most of the students got average grades or scores, we still have outliers or at the extreme end. So we have the students, few students who got low scores and few students who excelled in the test. So letter A, if all of the students have average grades, meaning to say there's no spread of score, all of them are equal, so we have 0 SD. For letter C and letter D, if you will be following these, you will get not a normal curve, but a skewed distribution. So when we talk about skewed, we have the positively skewed and negatively skewed. So for letter C, if most of the students got high grades, meaning to say that's, is it positive or negatively skewed? What do you think? For letter C, very good. That's very good po. That's negatively skewed distribution. So negatively skewed because if you're going to plot that, the left portion will have longer tail because most of the scores are situated on the right side. So students perform excellently or perform well in the test. If students, most of the students got low grades, of course, that's that's positively skewed distribution. Positively skewed because the tail is longer on the right side because the scores are situated mostly on the left side of the graph. So that's for the normal curve and then the skewed distribution. I hope that's clear.